Nammo Phat. Good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The second mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I vow to cultivate loving kindness and learn ways to work for the well-being of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I will practice generosity by sharing my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in real need. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. I will respect the property of others, but I will prevent others from profiting from human suffering or the suffering of other species on earth. Today we're finishing reading Ajahn Thanissaro's essay on the 5 khandhas or aggregates from his book, The Karma of Questions. The first step in this process is to use the khandhas to construct the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. For example, right concentration. We maintain a steady perception focused on an aspect of form, such as the breath, and use directed thought and evaluation, which count as fabrications, to create feelings of pleasure and refreshment, which we spread through the body. In the beginning, it's normal that we experience passion and delight for these feelings, and that consciousness follows along in line with them. This helps get us absorbed in mastering the skills of concentration. Once we've gained the sense of strength and well-being that comes from mastering these skills, we can proceed to the second step, attending to the drawbacks of even the refined khandhas we experience in concentration, so as to undercut the passion and delight we might feel for them. Quote, suppose that an archer or archer's apprentice were to practice on a straw man or mound of clay, so that after a while he would become able to shoot long distances, to fire accurate shots in rapid succession, and to pierce great masses. In the same way, there is the case where a monk enters and remains in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born of seclusion, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. He regards whatever phenomena there are that are connected with form, feeling, perceptions, fabrications, and consciousness as inconstant, stressful, a disease, a cancer, an arrow, painful, an affliction, alien, a disintegration, an emptiness, not self. Similarly with the other levels of jhana. End quote. The various ways of fostering dispassion are also khandhas of perception. A standard list includes the following: the perception of inconstancy, the perception of not self, the perception of unattractiveness, the perception of drawbacks, the diseases to which the body is subject, the perception of abandoning, the perception of distaste for every world, the perception of the undesirability of all fabrications. One of the most important of these perceptions is that of not self. When the Buddha first introduced the concept of not self in his second sermon, he also introduced a way of strengthening its impact with a series of questions based around the khandhas. Taking each khandha in turn, he asked, is it constant or inconstant? Inconstant. And is what is inconstant stressful or pleasurable? Stressful. And is it fitting to regard what is inconstant, stressful, subject to change as, this is mine, this is myself, this is what I am? No. These questions show the complex role the khandhas play in the second step of the path. The questions themselves are khandhas of fabrication, And they use the concept of the khandhas to deconstruct any passion and delight that might center on the khandhas and create suffering. Thus, in this step, we use the khandhas that point out the drawbacks of the khandhas. If used unskillfully, though, these perceptions and fabrications can simply replace passion with its mirror image, aversion. This is why they have to be based on the first step, the well-being constructed in jhana, and coupled with the third step, the perceptions of dispassion and cessation that incline the mind to the deathless. This is peace. This is exquisite, the resolution of all fabrications, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the ending of craving, dispassion, cessation, unbinding. In effect, these are perception khandhas that point the mind beyond all khandhas. The texts say that this three-step process can lead to one of two results. If after undercutting passion and delight for the khandhas, the mind contains any residual passion for the perception of the deathless, it will attain the third level of awakening, called non-return. If passion and delight are entirely eradicated, though, all clinging is entirely abandoned, the intentions that fabricate khandhas are dropped, and the mind totally released. The bricks of the pavement have turned into a runway, and the mind has taken off. Into what? The authors of the discourses seem unwilling to say, even to the extent of describing it as a state of existence, non-existence, neither or both. As one of the discourses states, the freedom lying beyond the khandhas also lies beyond the realm to which language properly applies. There's also the very real practical problem that any preconceived notions of that freedom, if clung to as perception khandha, could easily act as an obstacle to its attainment. Still, there is also the possibility that if properly used, such a perception khandha might act as an aid on the path. So the discourses provide hints in the form of similes, referring to total freedom as, quote, the unfashioned, the end, the affluentless, the true and beyond, the subtle, the very hard to see, the ageless, permanence, the undecaying, the featureless, non-elaboration, peace, the deathless, the exquisite, bliss, solace, the exhaustion of craving, the wonderful, the marvelous, the secure, security, unbinding, the unafflicted, the passionless, the pure, release, non-attachment, the island, shelter, harbor, refuge, the ultimate. Other passages mention a consciousness in this freedom, without feature or surface, without end, luminous all around, lying outside of time and space, experienced when the six sense spheres stop functioning. In this, it differs from the consciousness khandha, which depends on the six sense spheres and can be described in such terms as near or far, past, present, or future. Consciousness without surface is thus the awareness of awakening, and the freedom of this awareness carries over even when the awakened person returns to ordinary consciousness. As the Buddha said of himself, quote, freed, dissociated, and released from form, the Tathagata dwells with unrestricted awareness. Freed, dissociated, and released from feeling, perception, fabrications, consciousness, birth, aging, death, suffering and stress, defilement, the Tathagata dwells with unrestricted awareness. End quote. This shows again the importance of bringing the right questions to the teachings on the khandha. If you use them to define what you are as a person, you tie yourself down to no purpose. The questions keep piling on. But if you use them to put an end to suffering, your questions fall away and you're free. You never again cling to the khandhas and no longer need to use them to end your self-created suffering. As long as you're still alive, you can employ the khandhas as needed for whatever skillful uses you see fit. After that, you're liberated from all uses and needs, including the need to find words to describe that freedom to yourself or to anyone else. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu. 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 Thank you for joining me this morning.